Hey everyone, Jesse Green here. Welcome back to SavvyDentist.com and to the Savvy Dentist podcast. It's really good to have your company for another episode of the show. Now, unless you've been living under a rock for the last couple of years, you'll have noticed AI popping up everywhere. Now, AI, of course, is not a new concept, but when ChatGPT was released in November 2022, everything changed. And the reason it changed was it became accessible to the masses. And since then, we've been seeing a rapid proliferation of AI tools for just about everything you can think of. And it's the same in dentistry. AI is involved in dentistry now in ways that it never was before, and I suspect it will continue to evolve into the future as well. Now, we're seeing AI tools used for call scoring at your reception, so listening into the reception telephone calls and scoring them against criteria. We're seeing AI used in note-taking, and of course, we're seeing AI used in treatment planning and diagnosis. And so one of the things that I think is going to be really important to consider is not if you're going to incorporate AI, but it's going to be how you incorporate AI into your practice. And I really believe that the practices that are going to succeed in a big way over the next few years are those that are able to incorporate AI intelligently into their practice to really accelerate their growth. And of course, using those tools available will help you do that. Now, at the forefront of AI in dentistry is an Australian man by the name of Max Ganhewa. And of course, Max is well known as the founder of Co-Treat AI. And he joined me on this podcast today to talk about, I suppose the background of AI, where it's been, where we are now in terms of AI capabilities, but also to kind of crystal ball into the future a little bit as well about what the future of AI might look like in dentistry. It's a really interesting conversation. And what you'll take out of this conversation, I believe, is not just how AI works and how to incorporate it, but how it interfaces with day-to-day operations in the practice and how efficiencies can be had and how better outcomes can be achieved for our patients, for our team, and ultimately for our business as well. It's a really interesting conversation. I really commend it to you. Whether you're a Co-Treat user or not, there's something in here for you. And of course, if you're not a Co-Treat user, Max has very generously offered listeners of the podcast a month free trial. And all you need to do is go to Co-Treat and at checkout, use the Savvy25 coupon code, grab yourself the free trial and start playing with it, because I think that's the way to get good at anything, is to have a dabble, have a play, see how it works for you, see how you can incorporate it into your practice. Because as I said, AI is here to stay. I don't think we can ignore it for any longer. And those practices that really get on board with this are going to find themselves with a really good advantage in the marketplace. So anyway, here's Max. Without any further ado, I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I enjoyed recording it for you. Hey, Max, thanks so much for taking the time to come and join us. How's things in your world?
Really well, Jesse. Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure, mate. And we've been talking about this for a little while. Max, you live in probably one of the most exciting spaces around at the moment. The space of AI is changing rapidly. And even in the last few months, I keep hearing new things coming out. I discovered vibe coding as a thing the other day. And this is kind of all second nature to you, but probably not for the rest of us. So, Max, obviously you're well known as the founder of Co-Treat. And before we get into the ins and outs of Co-Treat, I was wondering if you can give us a bit of a past, present, future thing about AI. AI has been around for a while, but what is it that really caused it to take off in the most recent years or so?
Good question. Yeah, I think AI and the concept of AI, it's been around for 100 years, right? Going all the way back to Turing and Herbert Simon. The history of this is fascinating to kind of dig into. So I encourage people to look up the history of AI. But I think it's just like the use case and the practicality and getting it to the hands of everyday people that's been difficult. And obviously OpenAI and ChatGPT, I think that was like the watershed moment for like getting this into the hands of everybody, right? So that was late 2022. So it's been a couple of years. Yeah, so history is really fascinating. I think computer vision was one of the first things that sort of people started using AI for. That's probably been around for about 15 years.
Yep.
Computer vision is image analysis, essentially. This is a cat, this is a dog. So that sort of AI has been around for a little while. But generative AI, I think it's always like really hard to explain. It's such a complex thing, right? But I think it reached a critical mass of data, right? Like videos or images or whatever. They obviously had access to so much data that they could use this and create something generative, which is something new from a mass of old data.
It's really interesting. I remember when ChatGPT was announced, and a few months after that, we were all kind of playing around with it and experimenting. And I think in the early days, you kind of go, okay, this is really curious. This is really fascinating. How's it going to work? And as you say, since that time, it's become more and more popular. There's more and more platforms coming out. And from a dental point of view, I think it really is, well, I don't think I'm saying anything new here. It really is the future of dentistry. And I'm curious to understand, you've been in this space for a while now. What caught your attention? What was it that captured your imagination and thought, we can do something here?
I think it was partly theory, but mostly practice. I still have a practice, right? Now, I've been a practice owner since 2014. So everybody knows it's really expensive to run a practice, really difficult to scale. Like I found it pretty easy to fill my own books and become pretty successful for my own one chair, but hiring that second associate, third, fourth, it was just found it really difficult to scale what I was doing in the chair. So I think that was probably one of the main problems per se. And then I got real curious about what's causing some of these inconsistent diagnoses and treatment plans, and obviously not billing as much as I was. So it was just so reliant on me, right? So go to Melbourne Uni, do a bit of research on this topic called clinical decision making. I'm obsessed with this topic. This guy, Daniel Kahneman, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Fast thinking slow.
Yeah, obsessed with his work. So pretty much how that applied to dental decision making, essentially what causes overtreatment on some occasions, but on the vast majority of cases, why weren't my associates talking about implants or indirect restorations or aligners, and why did all the billing fall on my shoulders? So that was some of the theory that drove some of the decisions. But the AI part, my co-founder, Niki, so he's a technical co-founder, really great friend. So, just over coffees and dinners, just me talking about like how subjective human judgment and human decision making can be across practitioners, but also sometimes like across an individual practitioners, depending on the day or their mood, whether they're well rested, whatever, right? So essentially, he sort of brought the solution around AI can help maybe make some of these decisions more objective, not 100% objective, right? Like I think that's the art and science of it, but essentially try to get practitioners to plan aligners and direct restorations and implants more consistently by AI surfacing some of these issues. So part theory, part practice.
Yeah, well, you've touched on probably, I think, a real hot button for practice owners, and that is the billings often fall to me. I can produce whatever I can produce pretty well. Like you said, I can fill my book. I can make sure my particular chair is productive and I'm doing well. And probably the bane of every practice owner's existence, as far as I can tell, and having spoken to literally thousands of them, is why can't my associates replicate what I do? And I think this is a really good problem to solve because there's so many threads to this, right? One is if you can crack that nut, if you can make sure that you're getting that consistent diagnosis and consistent treatment planning and ultimately consistent billing, what that really means for the practice owner is you create leverage in the business, you get better return on your investment. Through that leverage, you have time flexibility and you have confidence that your patients are receiving the best possible care according to, I suppose, best practice principles. And you're right, for the very, I suppose, it's one end of the spectrum, you've got the over treatment element, which may or may not occur, probably does somewhere. But I think you're right. The big problem is underdiagnosis and undertreatment. So I wanted to talk a little bit about your experience then with co-treat and getting into the nuts and bolts. What is it and how does it work and what's that mean for practice?
We know through the data, just to go back a step, Jesse, like the underdiagnosis thing, it's very much the case for aligners, implants, and direct restorations. There's just a ton of work. Like we see something like 70% of patients will have malocclusions or crowding or space. That could be corrected. I think like it's 48.3 has crowding, and then some has spacing, some has like basic malocclusions. Not the complex stuff that general practitioners shouldn't be treating, right? There's just a ton of work just sitting there, but the patients are just not aware. So I think what is co-treat? One of the first things is it really aggregates the possibilities and the opportunities in a practice. So a practice owner can really see my patients have 74% orthodontic opportunities, 22% single missing teeth that could get an implant in there. It uses computer vision to run over imaging. So we can analyze radiographs, OPGs, bite wings, PAs, crucially photography, so arch photos, and to some extent intraoral camera photos. We can't yet do 3D data. We will get to them at some stage. AI runs over these imaging and surfaces the objective findings and the ethical revenue opportunities that could be actioned. And what that action is, I think that's a really fascinating part. Maybe we'll circle back to that a little bit later. But I think the first principles, CodeRate runs computer vision AI through imaging to surface what are these opportunities and observations with patients.
And just on those stats for a minute, because I mean, you rattled off a couple of stats.
It's mind-blowing.
It is absolutely mind-blowing. And let me just, I'm a marketer, right? I grew up in marketing land and love marketing. It's awesome. And I've long been a believer that, in your existing patients, there's so much treatment that you probably could turn off your external marketing for a while and just treat your existing patients. Now, just to be clear, I'm not advocating turning off the external marketing. So, ladies and gents, please don't go and do that. But you said 74% of patients have some form of orthodontic treatment that could be performed that is relatively minor in nature or within the realm of general practice, basically.
It obviously depends on the patient demographics, right? If you get like a young patient base, you're going to have wisdom teeth, ortho opportunities. Older, obviously, indirect restorations and implants.
Sure. But generally, as a stat, you've got 70 odd % of patients with some sort of orthodontic opportunity.
Right.
And if you think about that, ladies and gents, I'm just doing some maths on this for a second. Let's say the average dentist needs about 1,500 patients to be pretty full, pretty busy. If 70% of that is more than 1,000 patients, that's a lot of aligner cases right there, right?
Yeah. I mean, identification, I think, is the first step. And then it's obviously leveraging leadership and giving staff responsibilities to try convert these cases. That's arguably the hard part.
Yeah, and the first part of any buying cycle is the patient being aware that there's an issue, right? And if we're not educating them, they're not aware. And if we don't see it, we don't educate, they remain unaware. So I guess the AI and CodeRate in this particular instance is putting a spotlight on the things that we might see, but we might not see, depending on our subjectivity of the day. It prompts that conversation with the patient, right?
Yep, absolutely.
I guess the thing is, Max, is being aware of the treatment that's sitting in the patient's mouth is one thing. The next thing, of course, is being able to raise it with the patient, have a conversation about it. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that interface between technology and humanity. What's that interface look like? CodeRate has shown us what's available. What's your thinking then about taking those findings and presenting them? You would have seen lots of use cases where people have been able to do this successfully. Probably seen a few people stumble in there. What do the people that succeed in this do for that next step?
This has been like the hardest puzzle for CodeRate to solve, Jesse, like getting behavior change from practitioners as well as the other staff, because it's going to be a team effort. So I think we've gone through 3 to 4 years of lots of pain as a startup, iterating, talking to customers, looking at the data, looking at the usage patterns to see what works statistically, right? Because if we're not delivering an ROI, the customer is not using it, they're just going to unsubscribe. So as a startup, getting usage is like one of our key success metrics. And when they use, what's the ROI? So we've been pretty obsessed with this for the last few years. So hand on heart, we're at this point where we can deliver real ROI. But what does that look like? How do we actually get behavior change from practitioners? And sometimes we've found even like clicking a button is too much. Logging into a different platform is a big ask. They're busy. Well, sometimes they're busy. Sometimes it's just habit. They're on their practice management software. So we found even getting them to have another tab open, with CodeRate's a cloud software, right? So having like 2 tabs open, that was tough. Some would do it, but a lot wouldn't. So recently what we've found is like really powerful is using latent data, right? So this is existing data that's already in the practice software or the image viewer. We would analyze that in the background, and then we would simply send an email to the dentist practitioner. And let's say 7 or 8 a.m. in the morning, they would read this email. Since we've got integrations to the likes of Dental for Windows and Core Practice, who are great partners, we'll integrate with more practice software as we go along. Essentially, we can grab that data and say, you've got 9 patients. We can mask the names for privacy if we want to, but here's your day sheet. Here's your 8 patients. And here are the key opportunities on every patient. This patient, you need to talk to them about an implant. This patient has an aligner opportunity. So they're reading this email at 7 in the morning and they're preparing their mind for these diamonds, these opportunities that are coming up. And they're way more likely to have conversations because this is fresh in their mind. This is all Daniel Kahneman, right?
Yeah.
This is anchoring. This is availability. It's like a 10 or 15 second ask and it's just email. So they don't have to do too much different, right? Like as long as they check their email, they're going to see their CodeRate email. And that's the start of everything. Just proving to the practitioners there's a lot of evidence-based revenue opportunities that are coming in today. and just remember to have a conversation, because as we both know, that in-person conversation is absolutely key, right?
It's everything.
Yeah.
People will still buy from people, right? No matter what the machine
Yeah,
shows.
exactly.
So I'm really curious, just getting into some practice logistics around this. So in times gone by, well, not in times gone by, we still recommend doing a morning huddle, whether you call it a morning meeting, morning get together, stand up, whatever you want to call it, right? And part of that in the past was to prepare manually going through the day sheet for tomorrow to identify those opportunities. And what you've just saved there, I think, is half an hour of admin time every single day of scanning every single file, every single patient due in tomorrow to look for those opportunities. And what I really love about that now is you can take that email to the morning huddle. And I don't know how this works with CoTreat, but you could have your receptionist hand out the relevant email printouts or whatever to each of the practitioners, and you can scan it, go through it, talk about what's what, and so on. So I think that's really fantastic, mate. And what's been the big revelation that's come out of that, I guess, that anchoring process that you spoke about? What have you noticed as a result of that in terms of behavior changes?
Well, one thing that we noticed straight away, pretty much on day one, is treatment planning size going up.
Yeah.
So when practitioners are having these conversations with patients, right, the measurable thing is, do they put it into an item code? So what we really want to see is aligners and implants and indirect restorations at least going into a treatment plan, into a measurable item code. Because if that's not made, it makes everything difficult for the remainder of the team. Then the practice owner or even the front desk team, they don't know exactly what the needs of the patient are. But if the practitioner plans like the needs and then also has the wants, then internal marketing can run with that and nudge and eventually hopefully sell this to the patient.
Yeah, it's really interesting actually, mate, because we do a lot of email marketing for our practice. And that's one of the things we teach our clients as well, is to follow up with those sort of opportunities. And I'm a huge proponent of internal marketing. That's my book right behind me.
Yeah.
A quick plug behind there for the retention book. But internal marketing is so simple. It's so easy, but it's also easy not to do, right? And what I love about this is it gives you a prompt. It also identifies the value of the opportunity that's sitting in your database. And so as the practice owner, you can go, well, hang on, I've got this asset, and this asset should be producing me X amount of dollars. At the moment, it's producing me a quarter of X or a third of X or half of X or whatever it is. That gives really good reason to then get your internal systems up and running. So what I wanted to ask you then is, what have you noticed in terms of those people? Have they become more proactive with their follow-up? Have they started the email process? Are they reaching out and following up incomplete treatments? What are you seeing in the practice at mainly that front-end reception area?
Yep, in front end, there's sort of three areas that we're really interested in. One is reactivations, right? Like dormant treatment plans that's not being in. And if you can provide the patient a visual why, with CoTreat, it's really easy to pull up, like there's a, I don't know, caries lesion or periapical pathology, whatever that's not been accepted, right? You can get AI to pull up and annotate the why, and then you can attach that as an image to an email, or better yet, like mobile, Jesse. We've actually gone mobile first because we know through the data, mobile messages gets opened way more than emails. So we've baked in this web to mobile interface into CoTreat. So it makes it really easy for practices to send to patients through CoTreat, hey, you need this treatment. It's been 8 weeks since this plan was made. Here's the why. Here's a visual why. And then you send it to the patient, and you can even like track to see if the patient's opened it, right? So clearly we're data obsessed.
Totally, as you should be. That's great.
Yeah. And then that can be like another nudge that the patient has opened it. And then, yeah, it's just a matter of time until they understand and book.
Yeah. The other thing that I'm thinking is really useful here is around making sure your recall system stays really tight. So for a long time, we ran a system and still run a system in our practice where we would take clinical photos and do all that sort of stuff. And at the end of the appointment, I'd say, hey, Max, it's been great to see you today, blah, 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 blah. When we catch up in October later in the year, I'm going to need to keep an eye on these three things, right? Building value for you to make sure you come back in 6 months, right?
100%. What is the reason you need to come back in 6 months rather than just you should?
Yeah. And making that really compelling, making it, like you say, really visual. So we were attaching photos to emails, voice messages to emails, sort of stuff. And it works really well, by the way. But automating it through your system, I think, is going to be a really beautiful shortcut, and consistency as well, because it's less friction, which means it gets done more readily, and then it's consistent across the board. So again, what you'll see is full of books, right? When you do that, you're going to see full of books. It's going to give you more confidence in planning when you add in your next associate, or you add in another dental chair, or make those commercial decisions, right?
100%. And it's not like fully automated, because I don't think as a tech company we should be automatically communicating with patients. So essentially what we'll do is we'll make it very easy, like 15 seconds or 20 seconds to pull up the images, have templates or AI create that little document that sends it, and then somebody has to click send.
Yeah.
Whether that somebody is the treatment coordinator or the front desk person or the practitioner themselves, I think that's up to the practice to decide.
Yeah, I think that's really important too. You just want to make sure that it is intentional and deliberate communication rather than just kind of en masse.
And another key thing, Jesse, that to really unlock this like 70-something% of ortho cases and implants, surfacing and identifying these opportunities is one thing. Getting them nurtured and converted, I think that's the hard part, right? So what we encourage is for any patient with an orthodontic opportunity, now with CoTreat, even the receptionist or the treatment coordinator knows it's an orthodontic opportunity. So you can very easily send them top of funnel marketing material, whether it's just an Invisalign video or an Angel video. It's simply stating, elective, you have mild crowding. Is this something you're interested in treating? Just very non-threateningly ask a question. I think that's the how of how you slowly unlock these latent ortho and implant opportunities.
Yeah. Quick question for you, Max. I love the idea of seeding because that speaks again to my love of marketing funnels and so on. Does CoTreat have a database in the back end that syncs with the practice management software? Do you tag those opportunities? I'm just thinking like when you segment your database, you want to segment it by, I'm going to run an orthodontic campaign this month, whatever it is, or I'm going to run an implant campaign or whatever it is. But you need to be able to identify those segments of the database. So how do you pull that out? Is that communication done through CoTreat? Is it done through the PMS? What's that interplay look like?
Yeah, we've got full integrations for Dentful Windows and Core Practice, so all the patients will automatically come across to CoTreat.
Yep.
Within CoTreat, let's say you want to pull up mild crowding, right? Like we can get really granular. You can go mild, moderate, severe. You pick up mild crowding, the low-hanging fruits for aligners, and then it'll literally show you every single patient with these opportunities. And from that, I think you can essentially export and use MailChimp or even the PMS. So CoTreat doesn't have the ability to email out en masse.
Yep.
But we can tell you the patient list, the names of the patients that have these opportunities.
Love that. That's fantastic. So, Max, a couple of years ago, this would have sounded really far-fetched, really kind of futuristic. I'm old enough to remember the Jetsons as a cartoon, and now all that stuff was far-fetched and now it's real. Where do you think we're going to be in the next 2 years, perhaps? Because I don't want to say any longer than that because it's just changing so quickly. It's probably hard to predict, but where do you think we're going to be?
2 years. One thing I think that's going to happen is enabling better division of labor. So this is something that I've seen a few of our clinics experiment with, including my own, where I think DAs or even a treatment coordinator, they would be able to do more with the patient, even one-on-one, perhaps even like handle that first consultation, like a screening thing, right? Patient would potentially come in and they would, if they're a cert for, obviously capture their radiographs, photographs, take a scan, and then chuck it into the algorithms, and then you know what the observations are. So rather than the practitioner spend a lot of time acquiring images and doing that very first step, I think it's incredibly important for the practitioner to come in towards the end of the appointment or that second appointment to obviously build rapport and help build trust to actually convert. But I think there will be workflow and division of labor optimizations really soon. One anecdote actually we have is we've been working with the public sector for, if a patient comes in, signs up to a wait list, we can essentially get a OHT or a DA to take radiographs, put it into CoTreat, and we can tell if the patient is really urgent that they need to be seen as a priority, or whether they're stable enough to wait the 2 years or whatever to go to the back of the wait list. So that's done usually without a dentist. So those are the sorts of things, and workflow optimizations, I think that'll come into private practices.
Yeah, so triaging based on priority rather than time in queue, basically.
Correct.
Yeah, I love that. I'm just thinking back to my old Navy days as well, Max. I mean, this would have been really useful for the military because one of the sayings we had in the Navy is if you're fit to bite, you're fit to fight.
Nice.
And so The idea was that a dentist would deploy with a ship, go through and do all these checkups. And the big metric was to try and increase the ship's dental fitness. But what ended up happening around that is you do all your checkups and cleans first. You try and get all of those done because there's a whole bunch of people that didn't need treatment. So that kind of bumped your stats really quickly. And then you'd work through the easiest to the hardest because you're trying to push the stats. The problem with that approach, though, was while it achieved the objective of increasing dental fitness, poor old Abel Seaman Blogs down the end of the queue that had a huge carious lesion was often treated last because it didn't bump the stats as much.
Got it.
And I see massive application of this in the Defence Force. I'm sure you've already probably got contacts there, but huge opportunities there, huge opportunities for remote FIFO workforces and so on. Lots of interesting things. I guess one of the things that I've been reading about a little bit as well is the use of robotics. And I know this is not necessarily co-treat in its lane, but I guess one of the potentials that I see is perhaps that interaction between this kind of diagnostic tool, such as co-treat, and some sort of robotic dental machine to be able to provide treatment. Do you see that as part of the future?
Yeah, I mean, it's a scary future to think about, right? What is it in 10 years? I don't think 2 years or even 5 years. Could be wrong, right? This stuff has just changed so rapidly.
Yeah.
But I guess if you think about laser eye surgery, right? There are precedents in medicine where really important things have been automated in the physical world. So I kind of feel like it is inevitable at some stage. And potentially AI is like the operating system for robotics, right? So yeah, I 100% agree. But what does that mean for dentistry, provider numbers, risk? I think there's a lot of interesting things there. But
yeah, big questions yet to be resolved, right?
100%.
So Max, with respect to co-treat, one of the things that I've been really impressed about is the tangible impact it has on a practice's day-to-day life. It makes life easier, better, faster, smoother, more profitable, blah, blah, blah. I guess one of the things people might be listening to this podcast and going, oh, look, it sounds great, but do I really want to do that? I've been doing dentistry for 20 years as I have. How do I get on board and take that first toe dip in the water to get started? Is there a simple first step that people could take just to wet their toes a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the simplest thing is just sign up to co-treat and let us send you some emails. Let us send the practitioner an email, which we know they read, and see what impact it has on treatment planning value, are aligners and implants getting planned more often. And then once you're confident that behavior changes happen, then you can sort of move on to some of the more marketing and communication related stuff to sort of, I think that's jet fuel, right? Let's start with the identification, getting those treatment plans made. Those item codes put into the PMS, and then we'll go from there. Too much right at the start, I think it can overwhelm staff.
Yeah, so keep it simple. Let's go for the low-hanging fruit. And ladies and gents, Max has very generously offered listeners of the podcast a free trial. So when you go to join co-treat, use the coupon code SAVVY25 at checkout and you'll get a month free trial with co-treat and you can dip your toe in and have a crack. Because I think with all these technologies, the simplest thing is to play. Have a go, get in the sandbox, muck around and have a go at it. And then you'll either like it or not. And if you like it, continue with it. And if you don't. But in our practice and the work that all our clients are doing, they're saying it's a real game changer. So I think it's really great. Max, one of the things I just wanted to ask you about again with this is from the point of view of privacy and all those sorts of things, there's probably a question that comes up somewhere along the lines. And I know you would have tackled it. What is the go with all this technology and privacy and how things are stored? Just again, to reassure people that data is safe and secure.
Yeah. So really, really important, right? Medical data, we cannot drop the ball on that. So the tech team's gone to great lengths around like encryption, security, multi-factor authentications, just make sure like people cannot access the data. But another key thing, just in terms of privacy, is de-identification.
Yeah.
So we've got algorithms that will automatically de-identify images. If you upload a full face photo, we're not going to analyze that. We'll put it to the de-identification algorithms, crop out everything, then chuck only the non-identifiable relevant parts into the algorithms. Like, let's say like an OPG has a patient name, we're going to crop that out.
Yeah.
So there's loads of work that the tech team's done around privacy as well as security.
Yeah, amazing. Because it is ever present these days. We're online pretty much all our lives these days, and it's a real thing. So thank you for addressing that. Max, is there anything else you think practice owners and dentists in general should know about co-treat, AI in general? Anything that we've not covered that you think would be really useful?
I think AI in general, I think there are like so many different value propositions that are coming up, right? Like automations to phone calls or analysis or note taking. And so AI, it's going to be embedded into practices in many different angles in the future. And so I think it's just to keep that competitive edge and to have efficient teams. I think practice owners just has to sort of jolt themselves out of the current thinking and try these new tools, right? I'd encourage practice owners to not just try CoTrade, but try all the other amazing dental startups and features that are coming and see what works for your practice.
For what it's worth, I think that there's going to be a real separation over time. I think the practices that embrace AI will get ahead really quickly, whether it's the CoTrade type of product or whether it's the note taking or the call monitoring or any of those sorts of platforms. I think are going to be massive force multipliers for the business. I think they're going to absolutely power them forward. And my hot take on this, for what it's worth, is don't miss the boat. Not that the boat's ever going to really not be there, but get on the boat early, I'd say, and really start to power ahead.
100%. I think it's not just the efficiency that AI allows. I think it's like using these tools, you free up time to spend more time with the patient. You can make the consultation longer, build rapport for longer, maintain eye contact, because a lot of the other stuff is happening in the background, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's going to have a dual impact: automations for efficiency, but better patient experience because the practitioner has more time and headspace and clear thinking to focus on the patient.
Yeah. Max, I want to say thank you, firstly, for all the work you've done to bring this product to market. I don't know how many hours have gone into this. I wouldn't even begin to imagine, but it is probably in the millions of hours. So thank you to you and your team for bringing this to dentistry, because I think it is something that is going to add, or not going to add, does add huge value to the practices. And I think for all of us that still work in practice, all those things make life easier, better, faster, and simpler. And so thank you for the work that you do. And secondly, thank you for being so generous to come and talk about it on the podcast, because again, it's a new field, relatively speaking, but it's going to be a field that is around for a long time, but changing really quickly. So hopefully we can get you back when things are evolving, and we'll do a bit of an update as well.
I'd love to.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you for having me, Jesse. Thank you.
Hey everyone, it's Jesse here. I hope you enjoyed that episode of the podcast. If you're looking for some more tools, some more insights, some more inspiration to help you create a practice that you love, as well as a life that you love, well, head across to savvydentist.com and check out all the goodies that we have there waiting for you right now.